All right, so again, this recording will be on YouTube, so subscribe to my page. Thanks. Let's talk about quadratics. So I told you guys that yesterday was getting us ready to be successful today. So this whole entire unit, which we're going to spend all of our time until Christmas on, is over quadratics. All right? So you've spent a lot of time in this class talking about linear functions, where it has x to the first power. We're going to spend the next month talking about quadratics, which have x to the second power. Okay? So the first thing I want you to write down is standard form. All right, so standard form looks like this. ax squared plus bx plus c. That's called the standard form of the quadratic function. All right, so again, where it says a, b, and c, those are going to be what? What's a, b, and c going to be? Numbers. They'll just be numbers. They will be numbers, whatever it may be. Okay? The x squared and the x will not be like that. Okay? They will be always x squared and x. So this is the standard form for a quadratic. All right, so a new function. Now, I'm going to teach you guys 3 different ways to solve these quadratics this week and next week. All right, 3 ways. The first way is today. It's called factoring. All right, and when I say solve, what I want to figure out is what makes this whole thing become 0. All right, so there's a number for x that when I plug it in and do the algebra, I get 0. That's what I want to find. Okay? So 3 ways. First way is today. All right? So let's look at an example. So I want to figure out what numbers for x, when I plug them in and do all this math, makes 0. So the first thing you should write is x squared, bless you, minus 4x minus 12 equals 0. Because that's what I want to find. What numbers for x make that become 0. Now, to do that, to factor, we're going to use the skill that we did yesterday. Okay? So if you look up here, it says factors of c that add to b. So which number is c?
12.
It's negative 12. Negative 12. So again, a, there's no number there, so what is a? 1. What's b? Negative 4. And c?
Negative 12.
Very good. So my b is negative 4. So now watch this, because this is what we did yesterday. I'm going to write negative 12 here. And I want the sum to be negative 4. So what 2 numbers multiply to give you negative 12 and add to give you negative 4, which is what we did yesterday. What 2 numbers work?
Negative 6 and 2. Yeah.
Negative 6 and 2 is correct. All right. So again, let me just go through this again so that way you see how to use this box. Negative 6 times 2 is negative 12. Is everybody good there? Negative 6 times 2 is negative 12. Negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4. All right? So that's how the 2 numbers work. Everyone okay? Okay. All right. So to factor this then, I'm going to write some parentheses. Now I need to get x squared. So my factors that I use for x squared are x and x. Because what happens when I multiply x times x? What do you get? You get x squared. X times x is x squared. What 2 numbers did you tell me worked for factors of negative 12 that add to negative 4? Now watch where I put those. Negative 6 and positive 2. Once you have this written down, I want you to put your pen or pencil down. All right? This is your first checkpoint. Your first checkpoint. All right. So since your pen or pencil is down, let's see if we factored correctly. Now factoring, as you're going to find out as we do this more, factoring is really just another way of dividing. So guys, what's the opposite of dividing? Multiplying. So I'm going to distribute these two binomials. So when you did this in Algebra 1, this x multiplies by both of these in the other binomial. All right, again, I'm using that word binomial. Do you guys know what a binomial is? It's a two-termed polynomial. See how there's two terms here? 1, 2. So it's two terms. So binomial. Okay? All right. So what's x times x? X squared. What's x times 2? X2. We're not going to see x bend 2. Plus 2x. Now I got to do the same thing, but negative 6 multiplies by both of them. Again, you don't need to be writing this. You can if you want. That's fine. What's negative 6 times x? And negative 6 times 2? Negative 12. Okay? Now, what do you notice about two of those four terms? I see four terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. Two of those four terms are like terms. Do you see them?
Oh, I know what it is. All right.
2x and negative 6x are like terms. What happens when you combine 2x and negative 6x?
Get negative 4 in.
Very good. So did we factor correctly? Does this match what we started with? We did. Any questions on that? Okay. So that is factoring. Everyone okay? All right, now the last step to solve this, all right, because again, I want to know what makes all of this become 0. We're going to talk about this property here, all right? And so just to help us out, let me just ask you this question. If I have A times B is 0, and I tell you A is 4, what does B need to be for that to be true? It needs to be 0 because 4 times 0 makes 0. What I'm trying to say here is that if you have two factors, which is what I have right here, I have one factor and a second factor. All I need is one of those to be 0, and the whole thing becomes 0. Okay? So I'm going to set each of those factors equal to 0. So x minus 6 equals 0, and x plus 2 equals 0. So do you know what number minus 6 makes 0? Positive 6. What about what number plus 2 makes 0? Negative 2. All right, and again, once you have this written down, go ahead and put your pen or pencil down so we can see if these are correct. Okay, so the whole point here is these numbers are supposed to make this whole thing become 0. So let's see if that happens. So I'm going to do some mental math. You guys ready to follow along? Excellent. 6 squared. What's 6 squared? 36. What's 4 times 6? 24. What's 36 minus 24? 12. And what's 12 minus 12? 0. So 6 works. What about negative 2? What's negative 2 squared? Positive 4, right? The negative be inside parentheses, so 4. What's negative 4 times negative 2? Positive 8. So 4 plus 8 makes 12, and 12 minus 12 is 0. So if you do this process, you find the numbers that work. Do you guys think you could have found those numbers? Just guessing? Maybe. But do you see how much quicker it is to find those numbers?
So we have to basically check it twice because you don't check.
You're checking both of them, yes. Everything good?
Yes, sir.
Great.
But you said if one of them works, then we don't have to check that.
No, you should check both. This is not one of those things like if one works, the other. They both should work. Yeah. All right. You guys ready to try another one? Great. Yes, you are, Carlos. Here we go. Let's go to this one. Example 2. Example 2. What looks different about example 2 than example 1? I think, Giselle, you hit it there. It has a number where? In front of the x squared, right? Because they both have numbers in front of x, but this one has a 2. In example 1, it did not have a number in front of x squared. So that means it's going to be a little different. Okay, a little different when we do this one. All right? The first step is the same, though. You still want to go ahead and write 2x squared minus 5x plus 2 equals 0. All right, you still want to write that. 2x squared minus 5x plus 2 equals 0. So we're going to try to figure out what numbers will make that true. Now, unfortunately, because of the number 2 in front, I cannot use my box, right? If I use my box right now, what's C and what's B? C is 2 and B is negative 5. So if I use my box, it would be like this. Factors of 2 that add to negative 5. Do you guys know what numbers multiply to give you 2 that add to negative 5? The answer is there are none. What are the only factors of 2? 1 and 2. 1 and 2 are the only factors of 2, which means those are not going to add to negative 5. But here's why you're going to use 1 and 2. Because when you use this 2, one of those numbers is going to multiply by it. So here's what you want to do. Write your binomials again. On the last problem, we had x and x. Why did we have x and x on the last problem? Because x times x is x squared. But is that what I have now? No. So one of those needs to be what? A 2x. Because what is 2x times x? 2x squared. Okay? So now, guys, what are the factors of 2? What are the factors of 2 that we're going to use? What are they? There's only 2 of them. 2 and 1, right? So I'm going to write 2 and 1, even though that doesn't actually work, because I'm going to use 2 and 1. Here is where, guys, I guess and check. So if you're using a pencil, great. All right? If you're not, that's okay. So I guess and check. So where do you want to put 2 and 1? Do you want to put the 2 here or there? You tell me. 2 in the first one. Okay. What signs do you want to put with them? Do you want to put addition, subtraction? What do you want to put? I'm hearing addition. Okay. So the first thing I check here to see if this works, the first thing I check, the numbers I just wrote, positive 2 and positive 1. Multiply them. What is positive 2 times positive 1? 2. Is that what I have here? Yes. So that checks out. So I can keep going. What if that didn't work? Then I would try something else. I would try different places. Okay? Now, here's the next one. You really want to focus on this because this is the hardest part. Multiply the first times the last term. What's 2x times 1? 2x. Okay? What's the middle 2? 2 times x. 2x. What happens when I add those together? Does that equal negative 5x? No. So that means they're in the wrong spot. So what should I do now? Change them. So how do you want to change them? Okay, so we're going to make this positive 1 and this positive 2. Everybody good? And I'm going to try again. I'll use blue for this next try. 2x times 2. 4x. 1 times x. What happens when you add those? You get 5x. Is that what I want? It's close, but that says negative 5x and this says positive, so it's not right. How can I change it again? Make what negative? 1 or 2? Watch this. What happens if I just make 1 negative? What's negative 1 times 2? Negative 2, but I want what? So they both need to be negative. Because what happens if they're both negative? What's a negative times a negative? Positive. And then now watch this. The last one. What's up, Ignacio? 2x times negative 2. Negative 4x. Negative 1 times x. Negative 1x. What happens when you add those? You get negative 5x, which is what you want. So that's it there. 2x minus 1 times x minus 2. That's factored. So guys, this is going to require some guess and check. As you get better at this, you'll be able to start to do it quicker. Yes?
Is there a faster way to do it that you have to check every possible way?
I mean, to be honest, when you get good at this, you just can do it mentally in your head, and then there's no guess and check. You'll just do it faster. Okay, then. All right, so now we're not done. Whoa. What do we have to do next? No, not simplify. What did I do on this example after I factored? After I factored, then what did I do? I set each of them equal to 0. So I'm going to write 2x minus 1 equals 0, and x minus 2 equals 0. So you want to make sure you write both of these. Both factors are equal to 0. All right. I think we're all good on the one on the right. What number minus 2 makes 0? What number minus 2 makes 0? Oh, come on, guys. Positive 2. So that's one of them. This one's a little more challenging. What should I do first to move that 1 over? Add 1 to both sides. So I have 2x equals 1. And how do I get rid of that 2 in front? Divide. So x is equal to 1/2.